From Los Angeles, it's Messages with Pete Allman on OCN Network, uplifting the Word of God with film, sports, and political figures and people just like you. Now here's your man on the scene, Pete Allman.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Messages with Pete Allman. We have a great guest today, a gentleman that's got a great story to tell you, which is going to really motivate you and uplift you. And we're back, and welcome to the show. My friends, there's something really important happening if you're in Los Angeles, and it happens this Sunday. What it is, it's a peace conference promoting peace. And as I've told you before, peace starts within your relationship with God. But there are a number of things that you can do, my friends, to achieve peace, to get rid of the frustrations and the anger that you might have within yourself. And that's through nature walks, that's through meditation, yoga, and of course, praying. All this is very good. So what's happening on Sunday is we have a peace conference at Woodbury University. This is a great university. It's older than Pepperdine. It's in Burbank, and it's on Glen Oaks Boulevard at 7500. And at 2 o'clock, we have a lot of celebrities that are on the panel to talk to you about peace. And how do we achieve peace within ourselves and within the world? That's going to be a very important event. It's at Woodbury University in the Fletcher Jones Auditorium. And that's at 2 o'clock on this Sunday. So after church, come on by. We'd love to see you. We'd love to share about peace. Now, my special guest today, gentlemen and ladies, is a guest who escaped from the Soviet Union some 39 years ago. He knows what communism is about. He knows how they burned down the churches. He has a lot of experiences, and through his experiences, he became a great citizen of the United States here, and he created a wonderful concert to uplift people and their awareness regarding peace. And that concert was at Carnegie Hall, and it was received very well. And through that, a documentary was called Winds of Freedom. Would you help me welcome my guest, Mr. Alex Ayzin. Alex, it's great having you on the show.
Thank you, Peter. Good to be here.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, in the Soviet Union, as I understand it, it was communism, and they burned the churches. What was it like to grow up in the Soviet Union?
Well, by the time I was growing up, they were done with burning churches. Really, they did that in the 20th and a little bit of it in the 30s. For the leaders of the Communist Party believed that religion is absolute and total harm and evil, and traditional religions needed to be replaced by what I believe is the religion of their own. And so communism became a system of beliefs, or kind of a religion in the sorts that canceled out everything else. And it ran like this for over 70 years. So when I grew up, there was no religion to speak of, even though we used to say, God help me, not knowing what it means, but still inside of every one of us, there's a little something that we can call God. And at the time of desperation, we would summon His help. We will summon His help. Growing up there was interesting, was fun. As kids, we had fun. We played soccer. We went to the beach. I was born and raised in Odessa on the Black Sea, and I had a good childhood and good upbringing, and the schools were good and all that stuff. Later, as you get older, you kind of begin to see that the system is there, and the system is there to control and suppress. And we all were supposed to become members of the Young Communist League first, and then eventually from there people went to join the Communist Party.
Let me ask you this question, it's very important. As you were growing up, and of course your father, you'll explain what happened to him because he didn't want to go with communism, and so they punished him, and you'll talk about that. But as you were growing up, you were a musician, and you did something in Moscow that was never done before, and they reprimanded you upon that. What was that?
Well, that wasn't in Moscow. That was back in Odessa.
Odessa?
When we, I loved the music, and part of my music has always been a part of my life. I started with classical music, like with a lot of Russian kids. My mom wanted me to study piano, and I just hated classical piano. I just couldn't stand it. My head was into Beatles. That's what we wanted to play. And it was not a popular thing at that time in the Soviet Union to try to perform, to play Western music. It was sort of outlawed. And so the musicians were chased every now and then. They expected us to play basically a traditional Russian or Soviet music. But I helped to organize the band in Odessa Marine Academy, and we played the Beatles, and we played Deep Purple, we played a little bit of Rolling Stones. Kids loved us, and the authorities hated us. We were threatened with arrests. I was taken off stage a couple of times, and it was amazing memories. And growing up, John Lennon back then already was my hero.
And always he said, give peace a chance.
I felt the vibe. I always felt the vibe coming from John.
Now, with that thought in mind, of course, as you were growing up, your father went through a lot, and he recently passed last year, but he was such a great man. And I understand that you come from a third-generation Navy family. So explain about that, and explain how you escaped and what it was like to escape from the Soviet Union.
As I mentioned, I was born and I grew up in Odessa on the Black Sea, and it's a great town, lots of tradition, lots of maritime tradition. It has the biggest port on the Black Sea. It's the south gates of former Soviet Union, Russia, Ukraine, all that. And my grandfather and my father both were in the Navy, and they both fought with Nazi Germany during World War II and helped to defeat it. I'm very, very proud of them. So my grandpa was a regular sailor, and then my father was a cadet at that time in 84, 85. He was a cadet from Leningrad Naval Academy. Studies were interrupted by Germans pushing onto the St. Petersburg, onto Leningrad with the famous siege, 900 days. So my dad ended up as a cadet on a submarine, in active submarine duty, protecting American convoys coming from New York, Philadelphia, Boston, and British coming out of UK, and bringing supplies to Soviet Union during World War II. So my father was in the submarine duty. Many, many, many sailors died. German sailors, British sailors, Russian sailors. North Atlantic became a graveyard. So fortunately, my father came back from there, graduated from the academy, somehow never joined the Communist Party. He was never a communist. He was a great Navy man. He was a great and loyal and dedicated Navy guy. But not being a communist and not being a favorite with the authorities, with the high command, they sent him all the way to the North Pole. And he spent time, him being like a Navy hero, a war hero, World War II hero, they sent him up, and he spent close to 12 years up there. There's a great movie that we all like, I think, with Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin, The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, yes.
And so in that movie, there's a submarine base from where Red October sails away, sails out, and then goes out into the ocean. So my dad helped to build these submarine bases up there, up north. And he was always also involved in what I found out quite recently. He didn't like to talk to me about this. And only like maybe 6 months ago, my dad passed away 4 months ago, so only a few months before he passed, he shared something powerful and scary. I have this historic photograph where he's with reindeers near the Polar Circle, and I started to make a joke. Hey, are you about to become a Santa Claus? They want to give you a beard and a red hat and all that, and you're going to come down and entertain kids? He's not quite that. We were involved in testing a Soviet hydrogen bomb. I almost fell off my chair, and this is what he did. He's not proud of it, but he went through this very hard. He survived. He was out on the sea duty on the ship, and so radiation didn't affect him. So I grew up in the atmosphere of communist suppression and domination. I followed in their footsteps. I went and studied at the Odessa Marine Academy in Odessa, and upon graduation I was commissioned as a lieutenant, as an engineer, to serve in the Navy ships. I've been to Sevastopol a number of times, and I spent a few years sailing on different types of vessels until we became very disappointed and disenchanted with the Soviet system and with the communism. We saw no future, neither for me nor for my younger brother. And then my father at that point was very tired of them too, pushing him and abusing him and doing the things that they've done for millions of people. So the decision was made to try to get out of the country.
We are talking with Alex Ayzin. And Alex, we have a great story to tell you how he could have been dead, but God saved his life. And we'll be back with Alex Ayzin right after these messages. And we're back, Messages with Pete Allman. My guest today is Mr. Alex Ayzin. And Alex, you had an experience that was quite unusual a few years ago. Somebody hit you on the freeway when you were coming home late at night. Let our audiences know how God protected you.
Well, a classic Los Angeles experience. Some, kind of a strange things happened to me in the past. This was not a first time that for some reason my life was saved. Reason or purpose. But what happened a few years back, I was driving on 101 on Ventura Freeway towards Encino where I lived. It was Saturday night. I was out on a little date. We ended up at 11 p.m. I took the lady back home and I was coming back to my place. And at about midnight, suddenly my car just jumped. And I was driving in the middle lane at about 62, 65 miles an hour maybe. A little bit over the limit, but not too fast. And I was completely sober, didn't have anything other than the green tea. And so suddenly the car jumped. I had no idea what happened. It's almost like aliens came down and picked me up and took me somewhere. And before I knew, the car went into the spin. My heart stopped. I know something's going to happen now. So I'm in freeze frame, paralyzed with fear and uncertainty. And then there's a very strong, this first hit, hard hit. Then within maybe a second hit, I sort of blacked out. It was kind of out of the body experience. I stopped registering what's going on. When I came back, maybe a couple of minutes later, or I don't know, maybe 40 seconds, 50 seconds later, I see what happened. My car was sitting at 90 degrees angle to a divider, north and south side of 101 freeway. I blocked completely the speed lane, and I blocked the second lane. And I was driving a black car, and it's 12:30, so you can imagine an incredible kind of a situation that happened there. And so it wasn't just one miracle. It was a triple miracle, as it was explained to me by the police next day. I was devastated, but not physically hurt. So when I came back, I felt very, very strange. One light was on, steam was coming out of the radiator. I was shaking, but I checked my feet and my legs, my arms and my neck and my head, and everything is together, and there is no blood. And I decided to get out of the car, but I was in such shocked state that I couldn't walk. So I took the belt off and literally fell out of the car. I fell out of the car, and lo and behold, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I went on my knees and I literally started like praying. It was something that made me get on and started doing this thing, and I was on the side of a driver's side, which is very dangerous because you have an incoming traffic. Well, within a few seconds, brakes screeching and a big Toyota truck, Tundra, stopped maybe 10 feet away from me. If he didn't hit the brakes, he would have smashed me into smithereens. But the driver came out, he was yelling and cursing at me, says, "What are you doing here in the middle of the road at this time?" He saw I was not comprehending. He grabbed me and forced me to get on the other side of the car. So 3 miracles happened here. Number one, when I went into the spin, no one hit my car while I'm spinning. And you know, the cars are driving and they go in 50 to 60, 70 miles. It's night. It's Saturday, Sunday night. Nobody hit me. Second, when I hit the divider, the first hit, the car hit with the back. And so the car was an older Saab. And that car took a terrible hit, and it probably saved my life. So the trunk was gone, and the frame went like this.
I see.
But it protected me. I was there. intact. So first hit was with the back, then the car spun out again and hit with the front. And the second hit was much weaker. Had I hit it in the front, probably would have been more consequences for me. I would have flown out.
Your car was totaled, right?
So the car was completely totaled. It was taken away. The freeway was shut down for 2 hours. The police was flabbergasted. They were questioning me, what happened to you? They tested me for drugs or alcohol. Didn't find any. And they got even a little angrier, because, listen, this is traffic. You stopped everybody. And what happened? Can you explain? I couldn't explain. Well, later, next day, the truth came out. Somebody did clip me. And it was a wild scene. Somebody gave him a chase. And they got his plate. And so the guy who hit me, it was hit and run. So he kept driving. He realized he's been made. And so at 9 a.m. in the morning, he came to Woodland Hills CHP and surrendered. And he said, I think I hit somebody. They said, you think you hit somebody or you did hit someone? He said, yeah, I hit someone. And then the whole thing unfolded. So triple miracle. First, while I spun out, nobody hit me. Then I hit a divider. It didn't kill me. And third one, once I was out of the car, nobody smashed into my car. And the police said that's a miracle of miracles because we see it all the time. Our job is to pull people out of the wrecks and stuff like that. What happened to you is 1 in a million occurrence, that you're completely alive. And
absolutely fantastic.
Just unbelievable turn of events.
You have a little bit different outlook on life now.
Precisely.
And you appreciate God.
I appreciate God. I appreciate higher being. I appreciate the chance that's been given to me, that the higher power came down and perhaps saved my life and gave me a purpose of being. And that gave me more strength to get back on track with the project that I've been working on for many years called The Winds of Freedom.
Now let's talk about that a little bit. Time is passing by very fast, so we got to get all this in for our people out there so that they can come to the press conference that we have, the Peace Conference, on Sunday at 2 o'clock at Woodbury University at the Fletcher Jones Auditorium in Burbank, which is on 7500 Glen Oaks Boulevard. It's going to be a fantastic time, a lot to learn about, and our mission is to promote peace within, promote peace and learning how to get along with each other despite your differences and despite your nationalities. Now, when you went to New York, you graduated, you got a master's degree in transportation. We're going to go a little fast forward here. And you put on a concert with Emelian Shishkin, one of Russia's great composers, and it was really fantastic, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it was excellent. There were about 1,600 people in there. We didn't have budget to promote and advertise. And it was just people who walked in the Carnegie Hall. Many of them were tourists. They just wanted to see what the hall looks like. They didn't care what was playing. And they were surprised by high quality of Emelian's composition and this whole project.
Before you did that, though, you were inspired to do concertos to astronauts because of what happened in the Space Challenger. And at the same time, you could have been in the situation with 9/11 at that particular time, but you got out of that real fast because of the stock market. And thank God that that happened to you, otherwise you wouldn't be with us today.
Well, that's part of my life spiral, so to speak, is that a few times I was in a near death and very dangerous situations, but I was able to walk away. And again, maybe God and the higher power took me out of there. In 1986, the trigger for the Winds of Freedom was first an explosion of Space Shuttle Challenger. It affected me greatly. I felt very sad. The whole U.S. was sad. I dreamed to be an astronaut when I was a kid, like lots of Russian kids. And I decided to create a tribute. So I started writing the stories, and Emelian, who is a very talented composer, Moscow Conservatory educated, and wonderful, wonderful classical composer. I came to him and I said, let's create a tribute that can pay tribute to the astronauts and also pick everybody up and let us know that it's not in vain we continue space exploration. So he started writing the music. The next thing, there was a trouble with Chernobyl nuclear plant in Ukraine, and that was a horrible event for Ukrainian people. And again, my mind was saying, I want to pick people up. I want to do something inspirational, inspire next generation kids about many things that we're doing that humans are not all that bad. So there's many great things that we do. So let's inspire everyone. I kept writing my stories. Emelian kept writing the music. And then major political changes, 1989, the Berlin Wall collapsed. And eventually in 1991, Soviet Union, as we knew it, ceased to exist. It was no longer communist, and it evolved into what's known today as Russia and other 15 independent states that the former Soviet Union. So I tried to reflect all of this in the music. And the result was this CD here. This is Winds of Freedom. Only music here. This is the score. So if I tried to make a movie, it turned out to be a situation in reverse, where we did the score first, and then based on that score, finally, a couple of years ago, and after this accident on 101, I re-energized myself and created a video collage or a message, social message / documentary to inspire people, to educate and inspire, with the total idea is that we're here on this planet. We're here to live. We're not here to die in radiation, smoke, and explosions. And we need to protect ourselves, our lives, our planet, and cultivate friendship, harmony between the nations and people.
Let us do this right now. Those of you watching right now, if you align with what Alex is doing in the Winds of Freedom, and I'm involved in it, and we want to educate people, and we have it in the educational system right now, it's at the United Nations, it's at the White House, you can help us by donating $10 for that CD that you just saw. $10. All you have to do is go to the website www.windsoffreedom.org. That's www.windsoffreedom.org. And there's PayPal on there. And I urge you to help us, because we're educating people. And there's a number of peace organizations. We all need to work together. The most important thing is their future generation. They need to understand what's going on right now, especially in Syria, Russia, and the United States, and that relationship. We need peace. We need to learn to use a different path for peace, as opposed to our former path of doing wars for economic money-making situations for the economy of this country and other countries. We need to change that. We can no longer afford to have nuclear wars. So once again, that's www.windsoffreedom.org, and we have a PayPal account. You can donate. This CD will be available for you at the Peace Conference too. And is there anything you'd like to say about that, Alex?
Well, there's also this is a DVD that was finally made very recently, so both items are available. You can also watch it on the website. It is available there too. For now, we want to keep it as free as we can. Hopefully, we'll find international sponsors who are pro-peace, and they will help us to grow and to deliver the message. And basically, I go by what Dalai Lama says, is that the 20th century was a century of violence, and 21st century must be a century of dialogue. We have to talk.
Absolutely.
All the countries that have the nuclear club, 8 countries, and Iran is building one, and capabilities. We all have to have respect. We have to have understanding that we are all in it together.
Okay. If you want, you can email us at celebrityscenenewsdesk@gmail.com. If you have any questions, we'll write you back. That's celebrity, just as it's spelled, CELEBRITY. Scene like a crime scene, SCENE, newsdesk.com. And it's on the screen. You can see it right now, so write it down. And of course, the Winds of Freedom for, the PayPal, and to see Alex Ayzin's story. There's so much of that story on the website that you need to see. www.windsoffreedom.org. I flubbed that up a little bit, Alex. Don't forget, 2 o'clock Sunday, that'll be at Woodbury University in the Fletcher Jones Auditorium. And that's in Burbank. It's right off the 5 freeway for those of you that are in LA. And it's at 7500 Glen Oaks Boulevard. We look forward to seeing you there. Alex, I want to thank you for telling your story and uplifting our audience, if you will. It's a great and a very important thing. And as President Donald Trump says always, he wants peace, and we need peace. And we need understanding. We need compassion. And we need to put that into our lives. My mother always said, be good and be kind. You can see that. My mother was Martha Allman, and she passed away last year. Bless her soul.
Bless her soul.
But she's in heaven, looking down on us.
The humanity lost 200 million people in the World War II. We don't want these numbers to be even much, much higher. there will be no salvation. So the only thing is that we have to communicate, we have to develop friendships, alliances throughout the world between China and US and Iran and Russia and North Korea. People have to realize, I mean,
One nuke destroys the whole world, what, in a half hour?
no, it takes about 29 minutes for the ICBM to fly from Russia to the US and vice versa. Plus we have submarines all over the place, and they can shoot missiles, you know, land-based missiles and submarine-based missiles. We could be all wiped out, could be in a matter of really minutes. Tremendous devastation. So we can't think about it.
Okay, we're out of time.
We're on peace.
We're on
Give peace a chance.
Give peace a chance. Want you to remember to keep your visions positive. Keep positive people around you, and know that God is there to guide you. Right here for Messages with Pete Allman, I wish you a beautiful day, a beautiful evening, and don't forget to watch our show every Saturday at 12 o'clock. In the meantime, keep your visions positive, keep positive people around you, as I said, and know that God is there for you. Bye for now.